Ready in a minute. You know, feeding a whole ball team isn't too big a job when you have Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner handy. You cook the macaroni fresh in 7 minutes. And Kraft grated melts good cheddar flavor all through. Costs only a nickel a serving. Okay, boys, come and get it.
Kraft home-cooked dinners, the quick kind you cook up fresh.
Kraft, a truly nostalgic food brand in all of the USA, most notable for their cheeses, ranches, and of course, their mac and cheese products. And don't even get me started with those Kraft mac and cheese SpongeBob packets, because those right there were a center point of mine, and I'm sure a bunch of you watching this video, one of your favorite childhood snacks. Point is, Kraft is an extremely iconic food company in all of the United States. But of course, if there's something you've learned in this series, it's that Kraft doesn't always have the cleanest record. From a reported up to 6,000 cases of Capri Sun poisoning in relation to contamination of cleaning products, to a whopping 83,000 cases of individually wrapped Kraft cheese being recalled in connection to possible choking hazards that the cheese might cause, as we discuss Kraft's worst recalls. And to start, it should be noted that the Kraft brand is one of the major powerhouse companies in all the United States, with a long notable list of companies and brands under their domain. However, with having such a huge branch of the US food market under their wing, screw-ups are almost destined to happen. But first, we need to take a step back, all the way back to 1909, when a man named J.L. Kraft, immigrating from a small town of Stevensville, Ontario, Canada, at the age of 28, were eventually making it to Buffalo, New York. And after working 10 years as a clerk at a general store, you can only imagine how boring and tedious that would get. So come 1903, after deciding to make a little more out of his life, J.L. Kraft would basically decide to move from one side of that oversized, disfigured lake between Canada and the US to the other side, and moved to Chicago, Illinois, to further pursue his education. But soon following his studies at business school, J.L. Kraft had struck gold with an amazing idea. He had figured out how to properly supply and save cheese for longer periods of time without drying or getting moldy. And keep in mind, refrigeration was not like it is today due to, first, not being an everyday practical thing for both companies and citizens had. And second, the first mainstream refrigerator wouldn't come along until 10 years later in 1913. But what Kraft would do, he had figured out for cheese, if you cut it into pieces instead of wholes, and got something like tinfoil or plastic wrap, you could keep cheese fresh and longer. And soon after this discovery, Kraft got to work with his own horse and wagon, delivering cheese to any store and company that would be interested in buying. And come the following years, in 1909, J.L. Kraft's brothers would get involved with running the business alongside him. And come World War I, when by this point, a lot of companies and brands and the everyday person was being affected by the war, Kraft, on the other hand, saw an opportunity to expand their US market along with their foreign market. When Kraft had developed a process of pasteurizing cheese for longer periods of time than their competitors were doing, they could in turn be able to keep cheese fresher longer without spoiling it, as well as able to be shipped for longer distances. And with the US Army providing their cheeses into solid tin cans, it just made it last that much more longer. And following World War I into the 1920s, arguably the golden era of the United States, except for at the end, of course. But other than that one stock market crash at the end of 1929, the 20s were considered the heyday for America, such as amazingly revolutionary changes in technology, a lot of odd dancing and dressing up in strange outfits, and of course, long cigarette smoke thingies. And for Kraft, it was also as well a golden era in their company history, with their net worth, popularity, and overall likeness on the rise across the USA. Come 1928, Kraft would merge with a company known as Phoenix Cheese Corporation, but in some respects, this merger could have not come at a better time, because following the prosperous age of the 1920s came a certain dark era in American history, known as the Great Depression, an extremely dark and unpredictable time in the US for the economy and the average person trying to get by overall. Kraft had started to make their first of long line of dinner meals, and just for a whopping 19 cents, with one dinner pack could easily feed a family of 4. And with mac and cheese, a quick, simple, and easy food to make, it was an extremely popular food item during the Depression. And over the course of years, with all this positive attention the Kraft brand was receiving, with their great and charismatic actions, it was to a lot of families the go-to lunch, dinner, and meal item essentials food brand on the market. And come the year 1980, when over the course of years the Kraft brand would yet again have another merger with a company known as Darts. And with all these mergers and partnerships the Kraft brand was doing with other brands and companies, they were quickly up there with a lot of the other powerhouse brands and companies that basically run the American supply chain. But with overseeing and having to take care of a vast array of these sub-companies and brands, as mentioned at the beginning of this video, screw-ups are destined to happen. And this type of scenario would occur when in March 17th of 2015, it would be reported that over 240,000 cases of Kraft mac and cheese would be recalled across the United States.
Well, there is a major recall tonight from Kraft. The company says it is voluntarily recalling more than 240,000 cases of its macaroni and cheese dinner because some boxes may contain small pieces of metal. The recall applies to their original flavor packs with a best use date range from September 18th to October 11th.
As it would be entailed, original Kraft mac and cheese brands with the expiration dates of September 18th to October 11th were discovered that during March of 2015 that 7-25-ounce boxes were shipped to the United States, Puerto Rico, and some Caribbean countries containing small pieces of lead and metal in the boxes, where it was soon following that the Kraft company recommended that anyone and everyone with the identified contaminated mac and cheese return or throw out the product in question. And to preface on how much 240,000 cases of Kraft mac and cheese that would be, it's the equivalent of 6.5 million boxes of contaminated mac and cheese. And later, as the recall progressed in 2015, it was also revealed that Kraft mac and cheese boxes containing the label codes of C2 were also discovered to have the lead and metals in the mac and cheese that were being recalled heavily across the USA. But how it was discovered that the Kraft products contaminated with the leads and metals, it was reported that 8 consumers of Kraft products reported about finding metal pieces and fragments in the boxes. But come the second half of 2015, around the time of the recommendation period when all of the Kraft mac and cheese products be recalled, thankfully, it was reported that there were no significant injuries that occurred, or deaths for that matter. And at the end of the day, this recall wasn't definitely the worst of the worst recalls, but still a notable one that for months on end relentlessly affected the Kraft company. However, that brings us into our next recall, when just months later, in August of 2015, it was reported that over 2 million pounds of Kraft Heinz brand turkey bacon was being recalled across the USA.
We have a massive recall to tell you about tonight. 2 million pounds of Oscar Mayer turkey bacon has been recalled after reports of people getting sick. Consumer reporter Susan Hogan has the information you need to know about this Eyewitness News alert.
That's right. According to Kraft Heinz, the parent company of Oscar Mayer, the recall was announced because some products may be adulterated. In other words, spoiled.
Oscar Mayer discovered the problem in its turkey bacon products following spoilage-related consumer complaints, meaning some people reported feeling sick.
As it would be entailed, sickenings involving turkey bacon was occurring due to spoiling and enrollment, which equivocated to 2 million pounds of turkey bacon, or what would be around 84,000 cases of contaminated turkey bacon. But of course, with a recall of this size, questions were asked on how, why, and where a mess-up of this magnitude occurred. And to start, the product recall date of the turkey bacon would occur between the May 31st to August 6th of 2015 time era, and were shipped to the USA, obviously, as well as the Bahamas, and a country called St. Martin, where it was soon reported that a wide array of package sizes and product information with the meat were revealed to have information on what meat products were compromised, such as 56, 26, and 48 ounce bacon products, as well as the UPC products. But you might be asking, how in the first place did this bacon get contaminated? Well, it would soon be revealed that after multiple reported illnesses in connection with the bacon, investigators got to work to figure out why these sickenings were occurring. And after investigation, they had figured out that the best buy dates were heavily inaccurate by months on end. In turn, figuring out why there was such an uptick in cases all at once, as well as how this mass contamination happened, and were soon following, it was reported that the Heinz Kraft company went into full voluntary recall mode, with, as mentioned, throwing out 84,000 contaminated meat products, and as well as getting to work identifying which meat packets were contaminated. Although a spokesperson for the Kraft Heinz company was potentially downplaying the severity of this recall, saying that the premature spoilage of meat is not a food safety issue, and the affected products may deliver not as high as a quality taste compared to our regular dated products, with him as well pointing out that the texture and appearance of the bacon might not look the same, where eventually the USDA stepped in and rated the contaminated meat a Class 2 recall status, according to the USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service, which in other words means that there is a probability of adverse health conditions from potential use of the product. But come October of 2015, with for the most part the contaminated bacon as well as its contamination timeframe, and by this point, for the most part, due to the awareness of the recall being spread to inform the public, for the most part, the contaminated bacon products were thrown out and discarded by retailers, consumers, and the Kraft Heinz company as a whole, with it yet again being another stain on the Kraft's reputation that just weeks earlier were already dealing with another notable food outbreak that had happened.
And parents, you might want to hear this if you're packing your child's lunch today. More than 5,000 cases of wild cherry Capri Suns are under voluntary recall. Kraft Heinz believes a diluted cleaning solution used on its food processing equipment could have contaminated the drink.
In August of 2022, a recall involving a well-known brand known as Capri Sun occurred, and more specifically, their wild cherry brand drinks, with it being reported that the Kraft Heinz brand recalled nearly 6,000 cases of Capri Sun wild cherry brands juices, only exclusive to the USA, and it was as well reported how the contamination happened when diluted cleaning solution was mixed in with the Capri Sun brand, when during the production of the contaminated cleaning solution that was normally used in the Kraft Heinz factories that contaminated over 6,000 cases of Capri Suns that were recalled. And to preface, that would be around 203,000 pouches of contaminated Capri Sun. In turn, over the course of weeks, across the United States, the Cherry Wild Capri Sun product was shipped, and were in turn, reports from several consumers of the product reported that the drink had a foul, dirty taste to it. And with these multiple reports of Capri Sun products having this odd taste, the Kraft Heinz company quickly got to work to figure out how and why this was happening. And as mentioned, the company had soon discovered that almost 6,000 cases, depending on what source you believe, had been discovered that the 6.6 flu ounce 1.95 ml pouches of wild cherry had been accidentally mixed with a contaminated cleaning solution. Were soon following, food companies and retailers, along with the Kraft Heinz company, quickly got to work taking the wild cherry brand off of store shelves, and with it, processing and drink information was revealed to the public on what to look out for in the contaminated drink, along with the best buy date of the Cherry Wild being revealed on the day of June 25th of 2023, making it that much more easier to track down and find which products were contaminated. And thankfully, at the end of the day, no one was hurt or even killed during the recall. And when time came, people either threw out the contaminated Capri Sun product or replaced it, and with it, enough tension from the public, reports of potential sickenings were zero, and with even extensive research, it's hard to find out how many people in the first place were sickened by the wild cherry product. And at the end of the day, this recall, all things considered, was not even some of the worst in recall history, but one regardless, that the Kraft company was still somewhat majorly affected by nonetheless.
Here to check your refrigerator, Kraft Heinz is voluntarily recalling more than 80,000 cases of individually wrapped American cheese slices. The company found that one of its wrapping machines allowed for a very thin strip or strips of film to stay on the cheese after the wrapper is removed. That could be a choking hazard.
As late as September of 2023, a recall involving the Kraft company once again occurred, but this time involving their American cheese brand, when it was announced from the Kraft company that they would be recalling 83,000 cases of single American cheese slices, when it was reported that around 6 people were reportedly gagged or choked in connection from eating the cheese, when the Kraft company had reported that the packaging equipment had a temporary issue while the machines were in use, in turn causing the wrapping on the cheese to stick and get stuck on it, were following, the company had made sure to fix and properly inspect all of its other machine products to check for any more dangers, where in turn, when at the store, people were unknowingly picking up something that could potentially choke them or their family out, but soon following, the Kraft company was able to identify what cheese products were a choking hazard and the information to look out for, such as obviously the plastic film on the cheese, in turn potentially causing a choking hazard, but also figuring out that the cheese boxing responsible for delivering the product was their 24 slice brand and 72 slice and 48 ounces, and were with a wide array of best buy dates revealed, it made the recall that much more easier to identify the products in question. But come October of 2023, the month this video came out, all things considered, this recall was just another mass scale scare that affected Kraft and the US for not even a month. And over half a month later, people have seemingly forgotten about it just like that. So there you have it, Kraft's worst recalls. All things considered, all of Kraft's recalls were not that bad, but I think it's safe and good to say Kraft is the best example of a company on how not to run a food company and how to manage a recall, regardless of the size, for that matter. But with that, I've been Skipper Son, and I hope you all have a great day.